They sold you a lie wrapped in gold leaf, and you bought it with both hands. They told you that once you got the title, the applause, the penthouse key, the pain would vanish. That once you could eat steak every night, your hunger would finally be fed. That money in the bank meant peace in the chest. But here you are, rich, maybe, respected, probably, rested, never. Let me tell you what you really bought, kid. You bought silence, not the kind that comes with serenity, the kind that comes with confusion. You're not calm, you're numb. The applause faded, the spotlight dimmed, and you started hearing the echo of a question you thought you buried a long time ago. What was all this for? That's what they don't tell you in the motivational speeches, in the business books, in the podcasts recorded by boys pretending to be men. They don't tell you that success without identity is just a fancy form of self-abandonment. You became who they told you to be, and in doing so, forgot who you were meant to become. You climbed a mountain you didn't even believe in, and when you reached the summit, you looked around and realized you were alone. No brothers, no meaning, just a trophy in your hand and a corpse in your soul. Success, real success, is not about gaining more, it's about becoming more. But they raised you on metrics, not meaning. So now your value is tied to results. You stopped being a man and became a product, a deliverable, a brand, a KPI. And every time you win, you lose a little more of your blood. I've seen it in the eyes of young capos who built their empire too fast. They thought the world would clap louder than their conscience. They thought wealth would drown out the whisper of guilt. But the whisper only gets louder when the room grows quieter. You thought you'd feel like a king, but you feel like a ghost, haunting a palace that never felt like home. You want to know why? Because you never defined what success was for you. You adopted someone else's dream. You chased someone else's finish line. You lived someone else's war. And now you're realizing victory tastes like ash when the battle was never yours to begin with. So what does a Don do? He pauses. He rewrites the code. He burns the blueprint they gave him and draws his own, with blood, silence, and discipline. He stops chasing volume and starts enforcing value. Because a man who doesn't define his success is doomed to be devoured by it. And the saddest thing in this world is a lion who roars loud but forgets why he hunts. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be? I do. He was quieter, slower, hungrier maybe, but for something purer, a man with calloused hands and a clean heart. He didn't have much, but he had one thing you can't buy back once it's gone: wholeness. Then the world came knocking. It offered you a trade, a dangerous one. Give me your time, your presence, your soul, and I'll give you status. And you, like most men eager to escape the mud, said yes. You gave them your mornings, then your evenings, then your weekends, then your identity. And now, you wear expensive suits, but nothing fits. You eat in silence because the ones who mattered aren't around anymore. Or worse, they're still there, but they don't recognize the man at the table. That's the tax of ambition without anchoring, the cost of building without remembering what you're building for. Let me ask you something most men are too scared to face. At what point in your climb did you stop looking in the mirror because the man looking back made you uncomfortable? Was it when you missed your son's birthday for a can't-miss meeting? Was it when you told your girl she was overreacting because your schedule was life or death, but hers wasn't? Was it when you lied to yourself, told yourself it was all for them, when deep down you knew it was about proving something to people who don't even know your middle name? I've seen men make millions and lose their soul one compromise at a time. A little silence here, a postponed promise there. They kill the boy inside, thinking it'll make them a stronger man. But what they don't realize is that boy held the blueprint for peace. Now he's gone, and you're left with a bank account full of numbers and a heart full of noise. You can't sleep unless there's a screen, a drink, or a distraction nearby, because the silence reminds you of who you were supposed to be. You keep saying, "I'm just getting started." No, brother, you're running from a funeral you never attended, your own. You left the best parts of yourself on the battlefield: integrity, presence, curiosity, empathy. And for what? To be saluted by strangers and avoided by your own reflection? Let me give it to you straight. A Don doesn't just build power, he builds legacy. And legacy isn't just about what you leave behind. It's about who you become while you're still breathing. So here's the test. If everything you've built collapsed tomorrow, would you still respect yourself? If the answer is no, then you're not successful. You're just decorated. And brother, medals don't mean shit when the soul underneath them is missing. There was this man, had everything. Cars that purred like jungle cats, suits that whispered wealth, women that smiled like weapons. He walked into any room, and the air changed, not because of fear, but because of the illusion of power. But I knew the truth. I always do. I looked in his eyes and saw it, the tremble beneath the surface. The look of a man who built his empire too fast, too loud, too alone. A mansion built on sand. And deep down, he knew the tide was coming. You see, real Dons don't build for show. They build for siege. They build slow, stone by stone, each layer reinforced with loyalty, discipline, and blood-earned truth. But this man, he built like a gambler who hit lucky, fast wins, loud moves, zero roots. And roots, they matter. Because when the storms come, and they always come, it's not the size of your house that protects you. It's the depth of your foundation. This man had money, but no code, influence, but no brothers. He confused being watched with being respected. He thought if enough people admired him, it would protect him from collapse. But the truth? Admiration is fragile. It shatters the moment you bleed. You know what's stronger? Loyalty, code, ritual, fear that comes from respect, not spectacle. The streets taught me this: the loudest man in the room is always the weakest, because real strength doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need parades or likes or luxury logos. It just is. He had all the trappings of success, but no soul to sustain it. He didn't know the names of the men who protected his life, didn't remember the voices of those who helped him rise. His calendar was full, but his heart was vacant. And when the wolves came, as they always do, he stood alone on a golden balcony, wondering how it all got so empty. Let me break it down for you in language you'll understand. If your kingdom is built only on ego, speed, and vanity, then it's not a kingdom. It's a casino. And one day, the house collects. The Don knows this. He doesn't just ask, "How high can I rise?" He asks, "How deep are my roots?" So ask yourself, is your power rooted in code or clout? Because the man who builds fast to be seen dies fast to be forgotten. But the man who builds slow with silence and soul becomes legend, not for what he had, but for what he stood on. He had it all. Not like the boys on the corner say they do. No, this one really had it. Private jets, gated estates, a woman in every time zone. When he walked, people moved. When he spoke, silence followed. He could buy anything, anyone, anytime. But every night, He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, one for him, one for the ghost. I met him in a private room once, red leather chairs, curtains drawn, no entourage, just him, and the silence he couldn't outrun. He looked me in the eye, and what I saw wasn't power, it was exhaustion. He said, "Don, I have everything. Why do I feel like nothing?" I didn't answer. I just stared, because some truths a man has to hear from himself. You see, he didn't become empty after success. He was empty before. Success just removed the distractions. It peeled away the noise, took away the excuses. All the things he thought would fill him only revealed how hollow he really was. That's the curse of the unaligned man. When you chase fortune without foundation, you arrive rich in hand and bankrupt in soul. You smile in photos, but dread your own reflection, and when the applause dies, so do you. That man, he couldn't sleep alone, not because he needed company, but because he feared the silence. He needed someone breathing next to him, just to prove he was still alive. But nothing fills the hole, not the women, not the wine, not the winds. He built an empire and buried himself in it, like a pharaoh entombed with his gold, hoping to bribe the gods. And the ghost? It wasn't a spirit. It was the younger version of himself, the one with real dreams, real questions, real fire, the one he silenced when ambition became addiction. That boy came back every night, in the mirror, in the glass, in the stillness. And each night he toasted with the ghost and drank to the death of the man he might have been. Now listen closely. That story? It's not rare. It's not fiction. It's the path of every man who wins without wisdom, who builds without boundaries, who climbs without conscience. Success doesn't create demons. It just removes the distractions that used to keep them hidden. So ask yourself, when you win, who are you bringing with you? And more importantly, who did you bury on the way up? Because one day the lights go off, the noise stops, the screen fades, and the only face left is the ghost. And if you don't make peace with him while you're alive, you'll toast him in silence for the rest of your life. Look at your life. I'm not talking about the calendar, the cars, the brand deals, or the fanboys in your DMs. I'm talking about the quiet moments, the ones nobody sees. When you're alone, no noise, no trophies, no eyes on you, what do you feel? If the answer is nothing, or worse, shame, then you're not powerful. You're possessed. Possessed by momentum you never questioned, by expectations you never wrote, by an image you maintain like a soldier guards a castle, even though the castle's already crumbling from the inside. Let me tell you what most men never learn until it's too late. Presence is power, not presence in the room, presence in your own life, in your own body, in your own damn skin. Because when a man is not home inside himself, it doesn't matter how big his house is, he's still homeless. They lied to you. They told you discipline was for progress. That silence was weakness. That success was measured in digits and digits alone. So you sprinted, you bled, you conquered. But somewhere in that battlefield, you stopped feeling your own breath. And now you react. You don't respond. You chase. You don't choose. You impress. But you no longer influence. That's what happens when you lose presence. You become a puppet, dressed like a king, but tied to invisible strings. The Don doesn't move like that. The Don sits. The Don observes. The Don speaks only when the words serve his soul, not his image. Because real power doesn't chase, it draws. Real power doesn't prove, it just is. You think people fear the Don because of what he has? Number, they fear him because he knows who he is, even in silence, especially in silence. He walks into a room and bends the air because he's present in every cell of his being. He's felt his demons, buried his false selves, and what's left is real, cold, composed, immovable. That's what you're missing, not success, not another zero in your account, not another pair of eyes looking up to you. You're missing alignment, the brutal harmony between your actions and your essence, between what you say and who you are when nobody's watching. You don't need more ambition, you need more presence. You need to look your reflection in the eyes and say, "This is who I am, with or without the empire." And if that man blinks, if he flinches, then burn it all. Because no crown is worth more than peace. And no legacy survives built on the back of a hollow man. So here's the verdict. Power without presence is poison. And you've been drinking it by the gallon.